Here we go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right.
So you can go to the next slide if you like. I'll set up a little chat with you, Jules, and I'll be able to tell you when to change. I'll send you the letter X when it's time to change. We pay our respects to the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on today, and pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Thanks, Jules. So last week, we did a session where we looked at sponsorship from a different angle. So hopefully everyone that's on the call today was either present last week or watched the video recording. But during that session, we started looking at how you as individuals can tackle sponsorship, approach sponsorship in such different and unique ways. You'll be taking the same steps, potentially, the same process, but because of the unique aspects of your personality, of your interests, your skills, the things that you're passionate about, the things that you care about, it opens up a whole world of sponsorship that potentially you had never considered before, or you didn't know that it had any relation to sponsorship. So for those of you who also did the homework activities, you would have noticed that there's things about your brand that you maybe haven't considered before, things that you knew but had never articulated or never really spent any time looking at. And what hopefully some of you were able to do is start to use those clues to start identifying some potential sponsors for yourselves. So I might just do a really quick around the room, if everyone can just go into the chat and maybe just give me a word that would describe what your homework experience was like exciting, interesting, eye-opening, horrific, scary, confusing, anything. There's no judgment. I'm just interested to kind of know how that was for you, because you were kind of thrown in the deep end. We did, you were given a presentation and then you were given some homework to do. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for chatting. So I'd be really keen to know the word that kind of sums up your experience there. So as you're doing that, I'll just sort of talk through where we are at in this journey that we're on together. So the pink stuff is what we looked at last week, the benefits of being sponsored. We looked at some other athletes who are quite different and do different things with sponsorship. And from that, we started looking at some creative sponsorship ideas in terms of the kind of businesses that you could approach or the kind of activities that you can do with and for your sponsors, those dynamics of those relationships, because it isn't just a business and an athlete. There's something that makes that make sense. There's something that makes that mutually valuable and meaningful, purposeful. And then I took you through a little bit of the part of the process of identifying sponsors. We've got these 2 hours basically together like this. We've already had 1 hour. We've got another hour tonight. And this is where I get to tell you the stuff that I really, really want you to know as you embark on your sponsorship journey, or you look at refreshing or increasing and improving it. So these are the steps that you take to get sponsored. If you do want to continue on after today's session, you're going to have access to that process. So it's an online course where it's 8 steps to getting sponsored, and you will have an activity for each step. You'll start to create and you will complete a sponsorship proposal. So that more mechanical side of it, you will have the chance to go through. And you're guided through it, and it's quite thought-provoking as well. But these 2 hours, this is where I give you the really, really good stuff that's going to set you apart from all the other athletes. And it's game-changing, because most athletes approach sponsorship in a not a backwards way, but in a way that we've seen isn't super effective. They send a generic proposal out to loads of different companies and hope that they get sponsorship, or they offer themselves up. I'll represent you, I'll do this and that, but they haven't necessarily offered what's useful and beneficial for the business. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at how, as individuals, not only can you identify potential suitable sponsors, but that you can use all of the unique elements of yourself, your ambitions, your needs, your interests, to shape what you offer them and to identify what they can offer you, including, but beyond, money. So, there's so many different forms of value that you can seek from sponsorship. And I know not everybody that's seeking sponsorship is just after financial sponsorship. There's different things that each of you are looking for from it. So I'm just going to have a quick look at some of the words that you guys have shared. Exploratory from Mervyn. Yeah, cool. It is, isn't it? You're sort of exploring what's really going on in your heart and in your mind. Luke said that it was challenging. Yeah, it is. It is challenging. And, for some people, I actually don't think anyone finds it easy. If you're finding it really difficult, then there's something wrong. It shouldn't be really difficult. It's like when you're exercising, it shouldn't be painful. Sometimes maybe, but it shouldn't be painful. It should be difficult and challenging. And with sponsorship, challenging shouldn't be really difficult. That means that you're maybe forcing something, or you're looking at it the wrong way, or you haven't understood the process. So certainly if any of you are feeling that it's really, really difficult, have a chat with me, because I'm sure that there's something that we can work out together. It might be that you're trying to get it perfect, or you misunderstood something, or you're trying to make something work that doesn't. So, I think it's really nice, some of the words that are coming up. Shane said that he found his message and direction of charity. Yeah, charity or clarity, I'm not sure. Yeah, charity. Cool, good. Yeah, it's an amazing journey when you do actually take the time to have a look at yourself, who you are, what you're about, and start to actually see it on paper. And we have so much stored in our head. It's full on. So today we are going to look at the steps to getting sponsored. Like I said, we're not going to go through in detail every little thing that you do. If you want that, you can use the online course. For those of you who maybe don't want to specifically go and pursue sponsorship straight away, and for everyone actually, you're also going to have membership to Elevate, which is an environment that we've created it online. And you basically join as a member, so you'll get a membership sent, and you can navigate all of the resources in there based on a topic that's of interest to you. So it could be social media, or it could be public speaking, or it could be pursuing a career. And what we've done is we've curated the content pieces, blogs and videos and templates and tip sheets, into those categories. So it's curated content for athletes to just, take ideas and start to grow your knowledge and your experience, and put into action all of that stuff. But it's not a step-by-step course. So we call it free range learning. It works for me. I know that I'm not good at doing a step-by-step course. I kind of just want to get to the bit that I want to get to. But what you'll find is you'll do that, and then you might go and find other things in that same topic. So you'll start to build your knowledge. So what we will do is have a look at that overall process, and we're going to really focus today on what you can offer to sponsors and how to get that right, how to know that you're offering something that's actually valuable for them, because what's valuable for one sponsor isn't valuable for another. In the same way that each of you are unique, your brands are unique, the same with businesses. Okay, we might move to the next slide. Thank you. So one of the ways of identifying sponsors that we touched on last week and that you did in your homework is your brand. So your brand elements, your interests, your passion, your message, all the things that make you uniquely you, can give clues and ideas as to the kind of businesses or even specific businesses that are suitable sponsors or potential suitable sponsors for you. There's another way as well, which is your needs. What are the things that you need? What do you spend money on? Groceries, travel, insurance, clothing, skincare products, the stuff that that you need, that you use in your everyday life, in your sport. And also, what are your wants? So what are the things that you'd like to do or have or spend money on if money were no object? It could be that you'd really like to get into doing another sport as well for fun. I don't know, golf, surfing. So those things, and if you do go through the sponsorship course, you'll see that there's a template for this. All of those things can help give you clues as to sponsors. If you like, I should be sponsored by coffee. I should get a coffee sponsor. If I was an athlete, it would be coffee, travel bags, and like organizing accessories, because I really love to be organized and I'm naturally very disorganized, so I need to counter that. So those sort of things that are part of your life, part of who you are, not just you as an athlete, that's going to open the world up for potential sponsors. So there isn't one way of identifying potential sponsors. There's a few, and I think it's important for you guys to be aware of those. Okay, so move on to the next slide. One of the activities that you guys can do after today's session, whether or not you decide to do the sponsorship course, is to have a go at identifying all of the things that you can offer a sponsor. Not any specific sponsor, just generally. This is your treasure chest of, this is all the good stuff that I have that I can dip into and offer sponsors based on what they need as a business and based on what I've got time for and what I'm interested in. It's a really comprehensive list that we've provided in your workbook. So it's really just ticking a box, but there are some spaces if you get inspired to come up with your own ideas. The idea is that you will reflect on the elements of your brand and your skills and your ambitions to identify things that you could offer to a sponsor that are also going to benefit you. Things that will help develop your skills, help increase your confidence, your credibility, your reputation, your experience, things that you enjoy doing. Because what we don't want is that you get sponsored by a company that wants you to do stuff that isn't really what you want to be doing, like posting every 2 days about how fantastic their protein shake is. First of all, everyone's going to lose interest very quickly and stop listening to you. So your brand credibility has been compromised. But it's also kind of boring. Like you feel like you're just kind of a salesperson or a billboard. So the idea is that these relationships that you form with sponsors are mutually beneficial and they're fulfilling for you, that you're getting more out of it than just the product or the service or the finance that they're giving you. So that's an activity for you guys to do after today's session in the workbook. And it's really an easy one. You did start with the hard activity last week. I'm afraid that's just how it goes. It's often the way with sponsorship is that it's kind of like the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is actually going and speaking to sponsors. That's the fun bit. It's building everything from the bottom up, looking within and figuring it all out and doing some research and putting it all together. That's the challenging bit. And actually then going with an offer to sponsors, to businesses, that's the fun bit. It's still a little bit scary, but you've spent the time understanding yourself, understanding them, getting clear on what you can offer them. So it's quite a nice experience at that point. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, so what do I mean when I say looking at your brand, looking at your interests, your skills, to identify what you could offer to a sponsor? As I said, we've provided you with a list, but I want you guys to know how we come up with that list, and not just tick boxes, but to actually be able to go, oh yeah, okay, that's a good idea, but what about this? I want you to be able to come up with your own ideas, because you know yourself, you know your brand, you know what you're good at, you know what you like doing, you know what you don't like doing. So let's go through it. I won't read everything out, but if you've got an interest in drawing, what are some ways that interest could become something that you offer to a sponsor? Now, again, we're not thinking about a specific business at this point. Some of these get a little bit specific just because I had fun writing them, but it's really just identifying generic stuff that you could offer to someone, and you can tailor it and tweak it to their needs. But if you're someone who likes drawing, let's say you're really good at doing cartoons, sketches of people, you could offer to attend a family day that the business might have every year and do cartoon sketches of the kids. You could maybe do illustrations of building, if it's a building company, of their building sites, of their machinery, venues and events. So you can use your illustrations to create art pieces for them that they might use within their office. They might give to clients. They might give to their charity to auction off at an event. And these different forms of value. It doesn't always have to be dollar for dollar. It doesn't have to be, you give me this and I'll give you that. There's quite a different range of things that you can offer to a business. They might give you, $5,000 or $10,000 for the year, but you give them some different varied things back. Some are really high value, some are just a bit of fun, but it all adds up to being a really rich relationship that you have with them. Another thing you could do is draw their safety instructions. They might have a very boring safety manual. You could help them make it a bit more interesting. You might be really good at writing, so you could get involved in helping create content for them. You could, even if you're really good at it, you could offer to do some, sort of educational pieces. It could be for their staff. It could be, depending on the business, it could be stuff for their customers. You could do some, maybe they're let's say like Kiki K, they do stationery. You could do some fun little videos on, how to write a journal or how to be a creative writer, whatever your skill or interest is. If you've got an ambition of being a public speaker, it's a great opportunity to get experience, to create even some videos, a speaker reel, evidence of you being a great public speaker. Doing that with your sponsors is a really brilliant way for you to give value to them while honing your skills and getting testimonials back, So one day you might be able to charge thousands of dollars for a talk, but for now it's about getting experience and evidence. And you can also use that to, help the business in what they're trying to achieve. You could do one-on-one mentoring or group team building sessions, and they're not that hard. You can translate a lot of what you know from sport into the business world: resilience, facing fear, hard work, goal setting, dealing with adversity. There's so many things that and you're experts in just by virtue of the fact that you're elite athletes. And just because you're surrounded by other elite athletes, don't lose sight of how amazing you guys are. I'm not just saying that. I think I said last week, I'm really terrified of jumping out of a plane. Like, I've tried lots of things. I've done forward abseiling down a building. I've done like rock climbing. I've done stuff that faced heights, and I absolutely hate it. Like, I cry afterwards. I do it because I do stuff, but I hate it. So I admire you guys. So I would personally, and I work with athletes all the time, I would personally sit and listen to each one of you tell me about your sport and your experiences, and the fact that you do something that I think is so amazing, and most people probably do as well. So another one would be looking at what your passion is and seeing how you can translate that to something you could offer for sponsors. If you've got a message that's important, maybe it's about creating gender equity in the workplace or in sport or in the world, you could, part of what you give back to them is carrying a message that you both share. They might have the same belief. You know, a lot of businesses are really interested in social issues, social impact. It's not political, it's not controversial, it's just being human. And those human issues are now at the forefront of everyone's minds for lots of different reasons. And everyone has different opinions, but if you can find sponsors, businesses who share your passions, then you get to share that message, and that's important for them. It's important that they have somebody representing them that has that belief. So in this case, I've put down environment. You know, you could be an ambassador within an organization, so a large organization or a small organization, where you're bringing in, you know, within that organization, you're bringing in your passion of the environment. And, you know, you could be talking to their staff about all the places that you've jumped or competed around the world and why the environment is so important to you. You could also work with them to create videos and content that they could use on their social media. You could use it on yours as well, about, you know, eco-friendly products that they have or practices that they have. Maybe they're an organization who put the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals into action in their work, and you could talk about that. So, you know, this is really looking at things from every single angle and just thinking, you know, what you can offer that's actually valuable for a business. And we'll have a look at that now on the next slide, about how to figure that out. One of the steps in the sponsorship course is about creating a profile, which is basically a template for the business that you're thinking of approaching. So in that process, which we'll have a look at a bit later, you do a couple of things and then you start to go, okay, there's a few businesses that might be potential sponsors. You narrow it down to between, you know, 1 and 3 ideally, and you start to do a bit of homework on them, and you find out what they care about, what they're trying to achieve as a business. Most businesses, I can't think of any that don't, care about sales and growth. They care about other stuff as well. They care about their people, they care about the environment. But by virtue of being a business, you need to make sales of some sort, you need to create revenue. And most businesses want to grow, whether that's up or out or, you know, whichever. There's that growth element. And maybe that just might be growing their culture or growing their product. But it's always about moving forwards. And what you want to be able to do is understand what businesses are trying to achieve, both in terms of that outbound stuff and what they're doing internally, how they're communicating with their customers and creating brand awareness, how they're promoting specific products or services and marketing those, what they're doing with their staff, how they're training them or how they're caring about their well-being, or maybe getting their staff involved in social impact projects, what kind of product testing and development they might be doing. That stuff, that list, teamed with your treasure chest of stuff that you can do for businesses, that's where you start to go, oh, hang on a second, the cogs start ticking. You go, hang on, they're doing all these community events, and I've said that I really care about, you know, getting more kids involved in sport. Maybe I could be involved in some of, you know, their events that they're doing. They're going to a local fete, or, you know, they've got a schools program. Maybe I could get involved and add some kind of sport and well-being aspect to it. This is the kind of stuff that will set you apart from other athletes, because you're thinking like a business, not an athlete. And it's not rocket science. It's quite methodical. If you're a good boy or girl and you follow the process, you will get this information and you'll be able to have a look. You know, you'll go through that activity in your workbook and see all of the different things that you could offer a sponsor. And then if you go through the sponsorship process, you'll see when you fill out the profile, all the different things that a business might be looking for. And quite easily, you will be able to start to match the two up. And I say quite easily because it usually is quite easy. But if you feel like you're stuck, speak to me. If you feel like you want to collaborate with one of the athletes, please do that, because that's the whole point of this process. You know, you're not competing with each other. You can create an environment of excellence, not just in terms of your athletic performance, but in terms of how you guys approach sponsorship and the kind of legacy that you create for future athletes as well. That when a younger athlete or a new athlete comes into your sport, they're introduced to an environment of sponsorship in a good way, sponsorship that's purposeful and sponsorship that is more meaningful than just a transaction of, you know, a few dollars in return for logo placement. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the different ways that athletes can offer value to businesses on the next slide. Thanks, Jules. You're doing a cracking job. I was trying to be so natural there. Okay, so this is the dynamic. Oh, wait a second, before we start. So I am going to be putting myself in the hot seat in a couple of minutes. And I'm going to be helping or coming up with some creative sponsorship ideas for you guys. So all I need in the meantime is for you to give me in the chat one of your brand elements, such as your interest, your passion, your message, or interest, passion, or message. Let's just stick with those because they're a little bit easier. So write down one of those elements and I will put myself in the hot seat and see what we can come up with for a potential sponsor and the value exchange. So really simply, this is the dynamic between an athlete and a sponsor. You offer them something, you ask for something in return. Traditionally, and I mean like a long time ago, simply being a good athlete was enough. Or if you weren't, then you kind of had to be a bit of a sales agent, a bit of a billboard. Not always, but typically. Or the business would just see it as a bit of a donation. In fact, sponsorship to a certain point in Australia still falls into the, you know, charitable donation and people get the same tax benefits, unless that's changed in the last year. Yeah, that's kind of how it's been treated. But the dynamic that we're talking about is that when you put your hand out, you're offering something, not asking for something. Of course, you want something back in return, but that's because you're offering incredible value in the first place. So it would only make sense that they give you something in return. So what you would offer as an athlete is something that you're good at, that you're interested in, or you care about, that supports their business needs and ambitions. And what you would request in return is something that supports your needs and ambitions. So let's have a look at a few examples. We'll go to the next slide. So this is perfect because Kate just posted that her interest, one of her interests is photography. So this one's for you. So if you're someone who wants to become a photographer or you love doing photography, you might offer that skill to a business. Let's say it's a construction company. So a construction company, they do lots of different projects, let's say commercial construction, so big buildings. They would typically pay for photographers to come and do photos at different stages, you know, from the first dig right through the, you know, the construction process and obviously the end result. They may also want to get photos of their staff during that time, you know, safety images, you know, all of their staff in their safety gear, or particular teams working together, or all the managers going on a site visit. Photography is a really big part of their spend actually on projects. Oh, big, it's quite a lot. It's not big in the scheme of things, but it's definitely something, a service that they would use. And obviously they would also have staff photos done in the office, you know, for their website, things like that. And maybe they have events as well that they would want photos for. So you could actually, in return for sponsorship, say just a financial sponsorship, you could offer photography skills. It's really simple. I mean, it could be as simple as that. Or it could be that you ask if you can, you know, maybe do a photography exhibition and make it a fundraiser for a charity that they care about. They might support Beyond Blue or something like that. And so you could do a photojournalist series about staff opening up about their mental health, and not mental health issues, but, their mental health and how, they've got through things, or things that they've been supported even by the company. You can make it something really beautiful and meaningful, or it could just be that, taking photos of the projects that they build. And, in return, obviously there's a financial side, but it could be that they give you testimonials and references, or they recommend you to other businesses if being a photographer is a profession that you want to pursue. You could ask that they use your photos in magazines that they, get published in. So there's some really clever and simple ways that you could the sponsorship could all just be about you being, a photographer. They might also want to share your story as an athlete and, obviously feature you in maybe their internal communications and on their social media. But the real value you offer is that skill of photography. So simple. Love it. Hope that helped you, Kate. Okay, next slide, please. So if your message is about wanting to increase female participation in your sport, because I know that in skydiving, what would you call it, like recreational rate, like first people who jump, one time and one time only, it's pretty even between men and women. But in terms of actual competition, especially here, or particularly here in Australia, there's quite a difference between male and female participation. So part of your mission, your message of increasing female participation in your sport could be about going out to the kind of people who would perfectly fit into your sport. I know a lot of female lawyers who are like super adventure types, like they have this really strict and kind of intense job, but then they're, mountain climbers and ultra marathoners and motorbikers and all that sort of stuff. So, maybe looking at being sponsored by a legal firm, and you could offer to do motivational talk or, mentoring of female, junior female staff, or, doing health and well-being activities. So you can create that influence in a way that's not necessarily shouting your message. I don't know if I said this to you guys, but one of the athletes I worked with recently, her message was, Jesus loves you. And I said, okay, that's cool, but you can't go around just saying that to everyone, because not everyone's going to hear that the way that you want them to. She's like, oh yeah, I know. I said, okay, good, just checking. I said, but you can carry that message in everything that you do. You can carry that message through how you treat people, what you show them, what you give them, the way that you behave with them. So carrying your message isn't necessarily wearing it on a t-shirt, but you can do that in lots of different ways. You can, I guess, think about attraction rather than promotion when it comes to your message. So in return, it may be that you get to be featured on that legal firm's website. They may have a very, or on their social media. They obviously have their staff and, that's a certain group, but they'd also have all of their customers and their clients. So your message, your story, you being this amazing athlete, sharing what you do and why you do it with a broader audience, is going to help you carry your message about increasing female participation in your sport without necessarily saying it. Okay, next one, please. Okay, this is really out there. Okay, my sport is considered dangerous by some, but my message is about self-care. So this is again going with that message concept. Self-care is a concept that I think a lot of people are now starting to switch onto. As people get older, they maybe can't self-care and they need care from others. Or they might be at a time in their life where self-care is really important. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about people who are retired, but aren't necessarily in aged care. You know, they're not being fed and bathed, but they're having to really kind of take care of themselves, but they still want to live life. And I just reckon it would be so cool to be an adventure athlete sponsored by not a retirement village, but, like there's the, I guess, or the bigger business that owns multiple retirement villages, and being sponsored by them to go around and talk to these people about your adventures, do a fun, uplifting session for the residents of that village, and talking to them about your adventures, giving them, telling them to close their eyes and imagine what it feels like sitting on the edge of the plane. You can feel the wind. I'm just guessing because I've imagined this many times. Whatever you're feeling, you explain that to them, and then say, take them through what it's like to jump. Take them through that first jump. They're not going to jump from a plane. They can't. They probably missed that boat. They're possibly too old. They're possibly, got health issues and things like that. So not all of them are going to get to do it, but you can give them some beautiful experience. And you can talk about self-care. People often think that skydiving's dangerous, but actually it's not. And a huge part of it is taking care of our health and taking care of our equipment and making sure. And you can draw those parallels between your exciting, adventurous life and their retired life, where maybe they've forgotten what it's like to feel adrenaline. I don't know. It's just, you know what I mean? This is the kind of stuff that you can come up with. It's good fun. And I think when you start to just explore and do this lightly without necessarily wanting to get to a point, that's when you come up with really good ideas. Because the idea of a skydiver being sponsored by a retirement village company does not make sense until you start to look at it like this. You go, oh yeah, actually that could be kind of cool. I think I had a bit of a clue for this because one of our clients, Gymnastics Western Australia, they talk about gymnastics being fundamental movement for life. And they say that it's from very, very young kids to the elderly. I was like, oh my God, that TV show where it was young people visiting old people in a retirement village, and hang on, gymnastics and movement could be in there somewhere. And they love the idea, and they are actually in discussions with aged care at the moment. So it's going well. So yeah, I think this is the kind of thing, think way outside the square. Okay, I think I'm procrastinating because I think on the next slide I'm in the hot seat. Damn it. Okay. All right. So I am going to go with, okay, cool. Oh, these are all really easy. Cool. Okay, let's go with Luke. Health and fitness. That is just such a, so is that's an interest? You can pop your mic on if you want, Luke.
I'm a personal trainer. Hey.
Oh, you're a personal trainer. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you do anything at the moment where you work with businesses or corporates or anything?
Not particularly. There's a few like corporate things in the works with another PT friend of mine.
Yeah.
But not a whole lot. I specialize in movement mobility. So pretty much just foundations of movement and exercise and being a PT.
That's perfect. The thing with your sport, it's going to be tricky to introduce that into the workplace in its pure form of jumping out of an aeroplane or off of something. So the fact that you can talk about human movement, the fundamentals of movement from like people who are in a sedentary role perhaps, or people who are active but not necessarily in a really healthy way, like on a building site. Guys might be active, but they might have really bad posture, or they're leaning over doing something all day. Yep. So that kind of thing, if you remember from last week, Jupp Brown, the runner, the charity runner, he got sponsored by a plumbing company.
Yep.
He got them all moving on the treadmill. Some of them walked, some of them ran, some of them just cheered from the sidelines. So if you think about businesses who potentially have a sedentary workforce, or a workforce who are maybe doing movement that could cause some kind of, injuries and soreness and stuff, taking that in, offering them a kind of like a package in terms of sponsorship. It's almost like a package. So, it's some health and well-being activities. It's some tips. You could maybe get involved if they've got like a monthly toolbox talk or a newsletter that they put out. You could give them some tips to use in that.
Yep.
And you could, do a talk about your sport and talk about topic related to your sport that's also related to their business. You know, do a bit of research about what topics they care about, if they're about performance or excellence or you know, taking care of each other, that sort of stuff. You can tie that into your sport in some way. Do you do team diving, skydiving, or do you do individual? What's your discipline?
I'm a speed competitor at the moment, but I have done a little bit of FS four-way.
Yeah. Okay. So that, you know, I know it sounds cliched, but not many people will be talking about this. You know, that relates to teamwork in a business. Absolutely. I don't know, because I don't know the ins and outs of your discipline, but I know that it does. So there's a few things that you can take that include you as an athlete and your sport, but also this profession, this other knowledge and skills that you have.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for joining in. Okay, let's see. Sammy, I'm going to pick on you. Could you pop your mic on, please? Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Cool.
So I missed the other sessions. I've just been invited tonight, so.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe watch it if you want to see the first bit. I think it'll be kind of helpful to contextualize all of this. So well done on being brave. So I really like that you've talked about getting people outdoors and active for health, mental well-being. A session that I did with a company very randomly, I'd been overseas and I had terrible jet lag, and we had a 6-hour workshop. By 3 hours, I was done, like really, really cooked. And I said, okay, we're all going to go for a walk.
Yeah.
And we went outside, and the session was actually about sponsorship. It was a business that do sponsorship. And I said to them, we're going to walk in one direction. You're going to tell me all the things that frustrate you, because they sponsor athletes and they didn't have great relationships with the athletes. It was their fault, but anyway. So I let them have a go for the first half of the walk. We walked in this direction, and they said all the things they didn't like. And then on the way back, they said all the things that they loved. And we had to stop and wait at the door while they finished, because that list took much longer than the things that they didn't like.
Yeah.
And it was such a simple thing of getting people outdoors that they just talked so openly, and as they were walking, they just were so much more relaxed and open. And I know we got back into the room half an hour later and everyone had more energy. So, you know, you as an athlete with that interest and with that passion for, you know, getting people outdoors and active, mental well-being, you can look at doing things like that. So I really think that staff engagement, staff development is a really important aspect of sponsorship, because then you become part of the business that's sponsoring you. People know you and you're involved. You're not just this person that gets a check every 6 months, you know? Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if that's something that resonates for you, the idea of going in and doing like a team building session.
Yeah, definitely. I actually an outdoor ed teacher, so I've been doing that for about 8 years now. I run team building sessions and developing all that kind of thing. So it's just sort of moving into an area that I'm more passionate about. I've worked with kids for a long time, so it's nicer to help. I run the Women in Adventure Sports program for the APT.
Cool.
And I'm trying to build that into a business that's multiple sports, to just try and bring more back into our sport as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it was a passion before that of mine to, just get everyone outdoors more, because exactly as you said, I think it's also that you're not looking at somebody in the face when you're walking along, so you can think more in your own mind what you're trying to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, no, totally. I love all that.
Yeah, great. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. And this is the thing. I mean, you can, as athletes, you guys can do, and you'll see on the list that's in your workbook, you can do all the other stuff. You can do social media posts and put logos on things. That's all totally fine. These workshops that we're doing together, I want to get you thinking about other stuff too. You know, if you're someone that doesn't like speaking, you could offer to give, you know, things in written format, or create a video, or, you know, have conversations where, you know, maybe with their marketing team to help them create some really useful content for their staff or for social media, or even for publications that they put out, depending on the business. So you all have expertise, you all have things that you're passionate about and interested in, and it will translate to sponsorship if you try to apply it. Yeah, thanks, Sammy, and yeah, appreciate you getting involved. Okay, let's just do one more. Okay, Mervyn, you're making my brain work. I'm trying to read this. Talk to me, man. Feels too worky. Hang on a second. Cultural shifts. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello. So this is sounding like definitely transferable to the business world. Could you, when you talk about helping people shift from traditional mindsets to more, I guess, democratic thinking and empowering people, can you bring skydiving into that?
Yeah, possibly.
You don't have to. I mean, it's just nice if you can.
There's a lot of elements of time. I think just looking at how certain companies and work with their athletes last week, and elements that didn't necessarily bring to just skydiving, but how time is invaluable and decision making. And I think there's a play on those elements.
Yeah. Yep.
I definitely don't have it yet. I'm kind of working through this kind of. Yeah.
It's a process, and you almost don't have to have it yet. It might be once you identify a potential business and you find out a bit about them, then it clicks. So what you've done now is you've kind of bookmarked a concept. You've been, there's something here. I'm not sure what it is yet. You've got one of the elements, one of the puzzle pieces. So that's going to fit together with a business at some point, but if you don't know who the business is you're approaching, it may not be so clear. So that's okay. This process of identifying what you can offer to businesses, it's not that you have to identify the exact application of what it is exactly, or if it's a workshop, what the structure is or what the topic is. It's just a concept, and when the time comes, you can dip into that treasure chest of ideas and go, oh, that's right, I had an idea about changing, shifting cultures within organizations. That makes sense because this business has just had to rebrand and they've lost half their staff, and you can see that they're making some changes. This could be a really good time. Yeah, cool. Okay. Just out of interest, did you identify any potential sponsors in the homework activity last week?
Potentially 3 and a connection to 1.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm kind of just working through that one.
Cool.
Working out who else they are in touch with, and
brilliant.
Just seeing what weighs in rather than the traditional, email to a mailbox.
Yeah, good. Stick with the process. The idea is that it is almost like a puzzle, and we look at each puzzle piece separately. What do I want? What have I got to offer? Who are my potential sponsors? What do they want? And it starts to reveal itself, much like a puzzle. You get the corner pieces, or there's that, you can start to see a picture forming. It's very much like that.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mervyn. Alrighty, we'll move on to the next slide. As I said at the start, I'm not going to take you through step by step everything about the sponsorship process, but I just want you to see it. You guys will get a copy of all of these slides afterwards as well. What we've looked at already, if we start at the left of the screen, is getting clarity. Before you go out and start making relationships with other people, you get clear on yourself. And then you go through a process of identifying who potential sponsors are, what they need, what you could offer them, what you want in return. And then you get to a point where it's time to create a strategy, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to approach, 3 or 5 businesses. I'm going to try and get enough sponsorship to cover my costs this year and maybe help me grow my profile or get some more experience with my photography or public speaking. Okay, cool. That sounds good. That's a nice strategy. Then a plan. Okay, what am I actually going to do? And you'll put together a proposal document, which you can then tweak for each business that you approach. And then you'll begin to pitch. you'll make contact, you'll have a meeting, you'll give them your proposal, and going into the engagement phase where you start to negotiate. And negotiating is a beautiful thing. For those of you who do the online course, you'll hear me talk about it, but it's about collaboration, and it's a wonderful opportunity to begin the relationship with that business in a really positive way. I mean, you've already begun it, but to actually show them that you're great to collaborate with, that you're a creative thinker, that you care about them, that you understand their business needs, that you're switched on. Even if you're not an expert in what they do, you're aware of it and you're open to, being of value to them. And that you have enough respect and knowledge of yourself to know what value looks like in return. And then you will reach an agreement, which will be in writing, please. Not for legal reasons, it's more for clarity. It's more for managing expectations from the start, so each of you know what's going to be included. And then you begin. So as you can see from left to right, all the hard work's up front. You guys are in the work phase at the moment, and it does start to get easier. And the beautiful thing as well with this process is you can always take a step back. If things don't go great, if they say no, if they're not interested, that's fine. You can come back. You've got all the other potential sponsors. You know the process. You've got the proposal pretty much ready, and you just can go out and approach another. And it means you're not going out to loads and loads of businesses and wasting your time. You're being quite strategic and aware of your ability to really focus in on 2 or 3 businesses at a time, not 20. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, please. Lovely. You guys are all going to have access straight after this session, or at least within the next few hours. You'll have access to 2 online platforms. The one on the left is Elevate, and that's that one that is an environment where you can just navigate the stuff that you're interested in, and social media or your career or whatever it might be, and pop in and just start to navigate the different pieces of content. The other one, the Fast Track Pack, is for those of you who really want to get stuck into sponsorship, whether it's to get more sponsors or your first sponsor. And that will be that very step-by-step process. Some athletes do it in a weekend, others take a couple of weeks. I would suggest that if it takes you more than 2 or 3 weeks, that you're maybe going a wee bit slow and that you may lose momentum. So just don't rush it. But if it's been a week and you haven't been online, probably a good idea to jump back online. We will, when we see that you've started, you will get some emails from us just keeping you on track. But yeah, so don't ignore them. They're intentional. Okay, so that's the end of today's session. But if it's okay, we started a couple of minutes late. So if anyone wants to stick around, and we can do a little Q&A session now. If anyone's got any questions or anything that they want to share about their journey so far over the last couple of weeks. Oh, I can see we've got a dog as well. That's nice. We should have all brought our dogs. Yeah, so just pop some questions.
Kate
Hello.
Here.
Hey, Kate.
Hi. So, yeah, I know I sent my question through in advance, but something you said already kind of gave me a different angle on it in terms of the female angle. And maybe thinking about companies who have a low female participation rate but want to do something about it, which I thought was pretty cool. But
did I say that? Because I don't think I did. That's a really good idea.
I think it was when you mentioned the law firm, and I thought, they would have low numbers maybe. But
yeah,
my question is, sorry.
Oh, the women I know in law have all been bullied. There's a bit of, there's something in that too. I'm not saying women in skydiving are bullied. I'm just saying there is something in law firms. It's quite a tough environment.
Well, I guess my question was, is that something that interests sponsors or not? Is that a bit old school now?
No, it definitely is. I mean, I don't think being female is enough. Hi, I'm female, therefore you should sponsor me. And I don't think you'd want that. I'm not suggesting that that's what you'd do, but I think if you can align that in a way that aligns with what they're trying to do or say or promote as a business, then Yeah, no, that's fine. There's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. If it's genuine, if it's from you, if you're not, and you only you know this, if you're not just going, well, I'm a woman, so it should be easy for me, that's kind of missing the mark. No, I think that's great. I think anything where there's perceived or real imbalance, or, you know, if there's, like, I've got a very good friend who's an Indigenous athlete, and she never uses that to get sponsored. She never uses that to get speaking engagements. But of course it helps her. Do you know what I mean? It does. But she doesn't lead with that. She just turns up and she is Indigenous. Like, same with us being women. So, but nothing wrong with that at all. And the same with men, you know, don't feel like you can't just be a man. Like, it's, you know, I think there's been a bit of a shift in thinking in a positive way, but there's also another sort of narrative which is kind of man bashing, and I don't think there's any place for that. I've seen it at conferences. You know, I've seen really great men be berated by women, and I just think that there's no place for that. So, you know, being a feminist doesn't, there's nothing wrong with that. I think you can carry that message in a really positive and helpful way that's inclusive. And I love that concept of going into a workplace where there is gender imbalance, either in numbers or in other ways. You know, like an example I've given before is a logistics company where a mining company. I have had this experience. A mining company where all the guys out on site, they're doing the real work, and us girls in the office, you know, having fun, having coffee, having lattes, as they say. So, you know, there's that as well. It's not just numbers, it's the culture and environment. So, yeah, interesting. Do beards have an advantage on a manly man? Yes, I reckon so. I reckon. Look at you all. Yeah, you're like, yes. Yep, because that's you, right? That's the real you. God, how weird would it be if you guys all shaved off your beards and rocked up in a suit? Like, no, that's not you at all. Yeah, just be yourselves. I think. Sorry.
This is actually the Rona cut. If I put a mask on, it like covers it completely. So I'm being forced to have a goatee now.
Hey, you could shave it off for charity. You know, find a business that's connected to one of those charities that like shave off, like Movember or something.
Men's health. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that's another quick one as well. If there's a charity that you love or you're really interested in, have a look at who their sponsors are, because those businesses support that charity. So you might have some aligned beliefs. So it's not about being sneaky and stealing the sponsors of the charities. It's about finding businesses who already share some of the same things that you're interested in. Cool. Okay. I think we might have time for one more really quick question. Jules, anything from you, just to put you on the spot? You look like you're freezing down there.
Yes, it's cold. I don't know, you've got me stumped. I had questions all the way through and now I've got nothing.
Yeah.
I've got another one.
Great.
I was just wondering if you had a take on people perceiving skydiving as being safe or unsafe, and how we can use that to our advantage.
Yeah.
Or for ideas about sponsors.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was saying before around, like, I gave the example of like a retirement village. Yeah, that concept of actually taking care is fundamental to your sport, not taking risks. It's flipping the concept and making it more about, you know, looking at the positives and looking at that being meticulous, checking everything, checking it twice, whatever your processes are, the safety aspect of it. Own the safety, own the good stuff about your sport. You can jump into statistics if you want. More people die by coconuts dropping on their head than they do by skydiving every year. So you can do that if you want, or you can own the positives and try to not, I know that, what was it? There's not Power Bar. It's one that I can see it. Cliff Bar. They stopped sponsoring climbers who free climb because it was against their values. I'm not sure how that works. And that was really controversial. Like, a lot of people were like, hang on, this is the purest form of our sport. How dare you judge? We're not going to eat your Cliff Bars anymore. But Cliff Bars were really adamant that they didn't want to be involved because it was too risky. So it's, again, coming back to your values and your beliefs as an individual. And if there's a conflict, don't force it. You know, if a business says, not interested, you guys are crazy, thank you very much. You know, don't worry about trying to change their minds too much, but don't lead with it. Don't be apologetic about it. I would say just maybe know the facts if you feel like that's important. But am I making sense in terms of that positive aspect of it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a conversation that you've had before, that perception that it's dangerous?
I think, well, sometimes people talk about it, but yeah, definitely. I think lots of us sometimes have chosen not to tell people about it because everyone just, would assume. I've definitely done that in the past in my professional life. It's just not hidden it, but not really shared it.
I'm a Muay Thai fighter. Yeah, I've knocked people out with my knees. Like, I hear you. I know. When I talk about my sport, I talk about competing, not fighting. And I talk about using 8 limbs and let people figure that out by themselves. And, elbows and knees. And I also sometimes just go, hang on, I don't need to apologize about this. I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. I'm not out on the street being violent. And also, I've got so much from this sport. It has changed my life, and I wish that I'd started earlier. Life-changing. It's given me something I thought I was a quitter, and I'm not. Like, I can face fear and pain and be really happy and a really loving person. And so own it. Yeah, own it. And if people aren't interested, like, I'm sure there's people that have distanced themselves from me because of my sport. I'm not aware because they're distanced, but there will be people that judge and aren't interested and don't want to be involved, and that's fine, absolutely, because they're not the right fit for you. So it's maybe good to get that out of the way up front. If they say, look, it's too risky, it's too dangerous, that's really, be grateful that people have maybe said that and that they've made it clear that it's not a good fit. But yeah, own the positives. Yeah, cool. I think we're out of time, guys. It's gone too quickly. I'm looking forward to our session, which will be in another couple of weeks. Jules and I will work out the date with you guys, but it'll be a Q&A. So we'll be chatting. It won't just be me, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your time, Vickie. Thanks everyone for joining us. And
thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Vickie.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.